Everybody, thank you so much for coming. I find it fitting that we're gathered here together as a community. And number one, we're standing in support of Jennifer Rourke. Lost in all of the conversation around LEOBOR, we have a mom, we have an amazing wife, and just an amazing person overall who was affected by police brutality and a system criminally and through the Providence Police Department and the state of Rhode Island's consideration of accountability was failed by her own city and her state after national outrage of what we can only describe as something that no matter if you're a police officer or you are a regular person, punching women in the face should never be allowed. And the fact that it was a Providence police officer and that we stand behind here today without justice is appalling. And that's why you're here today. But I really want to talk about LEOBOR itself, because although we have issues criminally, there is a Bill of Rights that is afforded to police officers that give them extra set of protections that none of us have. In fact, the only people that have those protections are the people that are right here behind us. And that is called the Law Enforcement Officers Bill of Rights, better known as LEOBOR. Now, I'm going to stand here to the right with someone who's going to speak, Jim Vincent, who is the former head of the NAACP here in Providence, who 3 years ago made the recommendation that we needed to repeal LEOBOR. That was before Officer Daniel Dolan shot a teenager. That was before Jennifer Rourke was punched in the face by Gene Lugo. That was before, I believe, Sergeant Hanley put his knee on Rashad Gore's neck. So these issues are not going away. These issues are all connected with each other, and we will not stop until we see the full repeal of LEOBOR. It is no coincidence that we have police who are putting in legislation about police officers policing themselves. How does that work? How can you hold yourself accountable when you've proven to us that you can't do that? So you can hear the frustration not only in my voice, but you'll hear it from others today, because justice continues to not be served here in the state of Rhode Island, in which we are one of only a minority of states compared to nationwide, in which over 30 states can have their police chiefs and their mayors hold their officers accountable. So with that said, I want to introduce our first speaker here today, the former president of the NAACP, Jim Vincent.
Well, thank you, Harrison, and thank you all that are here. As Harrison said 3 years ago, I recommended that LEOBOR be repealed. And I did that within a Senate commission to study the issue of the Law Enforcement Bill of Rights. It became apparent to me, in about a third of that commission, that the Law Enforcement Bill of Rights, or LEOBOR, was not necessary. Think about this. The only state in the New England states that has such a thing is Rhode Island. And in fact, only 13 states in the United States has this. So why do we need something that other states do not even have? And people say, well, we've always had it. Well, we once had Ann and Hope, and we once had Benny's, and we thought we couldn't live without them, but we have lived without them, so we can live without LEOBOR. So I'm here to say that with all these incidents, all that happens is that you have justice deferred, and we all know that justice deferred is justice denied. It takes at least a couple of years to fire somebody that is doing something that everybody agrees they should be fired for. You know, a 2-day unpaid suspension for any kind of offense is not enough leverage for a police chief to have over his police force. You know, what needs to happen is the police themselves have to understand that they say that the #1 way of solving crime is have close police-community relationship. And I agree. I can think of nothing that destroys the public confidence in the police more than the Law Enforcement Bill of Rights. Yes, the mayors, and police chiefs thought that Officer Lugo should be fired, and many others thought that he should be fired. But what happened? First, it took the criminal case, which lasted months and months and months before LEOBOR could even start. You couldn't even have an administrative hearing until the criminal case was adjudicated. And so what did they do the other day? A 2-week unpaid suspension. I don't know about you, but what I know that where I'm from, and which is from Massachusetts, and from my era, when I'm a baby boomer, if you're a police officer and you punch an unarmed woman, you don't deserve to have your job, period. And I think that most of the people in this state agree with me that a 2-week unpaid suspension for punching an unarmed woman is certainly not something that is punishment. That is a slap in the wrist. I think overwhelmingly, people that are not even paying attention to LEOBOR said they did not get that one right. And the other ones that before that, they did not get those right either. So the public trust is almost shot. And that means that solving crimes and having effective policing can't be done. And that's what they say. That's not what I say. They say that's the effective way of solving crime. So I'm here to stand beside Harrison Tuttle, Black Lives Matter, All Right PAC, to say that we have to repeal LEOBOR as a state. We all need to have this happen if we're going to have effective police-community relations. And I just thank you for listening to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Our next speaker is a freshman legislator who, when I asked to take on this piece of legislation, without a question, said yes. In fact, what Representative Stewart said was, "Are you sure you want it to be me?" Which I was, of course, I would want it to be you, because of how strong of a fighter she is. And whether it's this year, whether it's 2 years from now, whether it's 4 years from now, I know that Jennifer Stewart is going to deliver on repealing LEOBOR, and I know Jennifer Stewart is going to deliver for her constituents of Pawtucket. Without further ado, I want to introduce Representative Jennifer Stewart.
All right.
Hi, thank you, Harrison, and Black Lives Matter, PAC, RI. So I'm here with a short and simple message, and that is we need to repeal LEOBOR. I put the bill in this year, as Harrison said, and like you, I'm here today. I put the bill in because I care about small d democracy and everything on which it depends, which includes equality and rule of law. And so I was very happy to take this on, and change is a struggle, and it's going to take a long effort, but we can do it because we've seen change in Rhode Island. Just yesterday in the House, we passed the EACA, and people said that that wasn't going to happen. A few years ago, we changed Rhode Island and Providence plantations to Rhode Island. We can make this happen. It's going to require us to be in for a longer struggle, and for you to contact your representatives and your senators and demand that they support repeal and that they don't settle for what is can feel to be the more politic and safe route of reform. reform is not going to deal with the fundamental problem of LEOBOR, which is that it has eroded public trust and it undermines rule of law and equality. So thank you, and let's do this.
And that's a fighter, and that's someone who I know is not gonna be messed with in the General Assembly, let me tell you that. One of our last speakers here today is a person who got me into organizing. Someone who opened the door to an ability to advocate and stand here today because of his passion and advocacy towards Black and brown communities. I want to introduce to you the former executive director of Black Lives Matter, Rhode Political Action Committee, and former candidate for City Council in Ward 3, Corey Jones.
So, what gets me upset about this is that for the last 3 years, we kept hearing there's a will, right? We kept hearing that there's going to be a reform of LEOBOR, that there's an appetite for something, right? And then what they failed to mention is that that reform wouldn't have did a damn thing for this case and many other cases as well. What is the reform if it doesn't stop a man from punching a Black woman in the face? We don't want that. And I believe don't let perfect be the enemy of good, but when there's no good, it's not good. Right?
Right.
So it's like we're going to look back on this time one day and we're going to say we had a Bill of Rights for law enforcement that allowed them to wreak havoc in our community, but we didn't have a Bill of Rights for tenants at a time when there was a housing crisis. Right? We're going to say we had a Bill of Rights for law enforcement so they could wreak havoc on our community when we didn't have a Bill of Rights for sexual assault victims. We're going to say we had a Bill of Rights for law enforcement when we didn't have a Bill of Rights for students to get a good education. And the legislators, the blood's on your hands. So we have to get to work and we have to make this happen because people in our community are suffering. And if we don't do something, then people will continue to suffer. Thank you.
So at this time, I'll open it up to any media questions.
Two-parter. Currently, there are 3 different pieces of legislation pending that range from, some would say, a mild reform to complete repeal. If in fact only reform takes place this time, how do you feel? Do you fear that that will push off for years the potential for full repeal?
Well, I think one of the main drivers of reform happening is because we have people in our community around us who are demanding the repeal.
Right.
And contrary to maybe beliefs in the State House, Black Lives Matter is committed to repealing LEOBOR no matter how long it takes. And so whether that's 2 years, whether that's 4 years, whether they pass a performative reform, the next day we're going to put out a statement saying that we want the repeal because we know what the community needs and we know what's right. And that may be unpopular. We may be called somebody who refuses to compromise, but I refuse to compromise when we have Officer Lugo out on the street protecting our community when he punched a woman in the face and his own police chief said he had lost faith in his ability to serve.
Do you want to talk about Pawtucket Officer Dolan, who's facing a LEOBOR hearing pretty much any minute now?
So I spoke to the mother of the young man who was shot by Officer Daniel Dolan. And this is another case in which the city of Pawtucket wants this officer fired. And because of LEOBOR, they can't. So here we have an officer who shot a young man driving to go pick up pizza, and is now under LEOBOR investigation, only, by the way, after facing criminal charges in which he was found innocent. Go ahead, John.
Something up about that. Another problem with LEOBOR is that there's no transparency for the process. And so in the case of Dolan, you know, the Vincent family is facing a LEOBOR hearing that is going to be completely obscure to them. Their son will have to participate in it without the support of his family because of the way the hearing is set up. And it's the lack of transparency that also erodes the public trust.
Representative Stewart?
Yeah.
You've also, in what some might see as a sideline, but a critically important part of State House reform, have legislation pending which will require full and ongoing transparency in terms of litigation, civil litigation, the type of which that, as a result of LEOBOR, can often end up with millions of dollars in damages that is paid for, in the Dolan case, for example, by the citizens of Pawtucket. How important is that to you, and where does that stand?
Yeah, so I introduced a bill earlier this session which would require cities and towns to disclose information about legal actions in which they are defendants. And that information would include a brief summary of the case, who is representing the city in the action, and how much has been spent, and to disclose that annually. And again, the decision to defend a legal action is basically a policy decision, and it's one that we as taxpayers pay for, and we should know about. And so it was heard in committee earlier this session, and it's held for further study, and we'll see what happens with it.
Can I, while you're here, can I follow up with one other question?
Yeah.
More philosophical.
Yeah,
You're a teacher of young people.
that's right.
You engage in a lot of conversations, I would imagine, with a lot of bright young minds of a variety of backgrounds about civics and history. That's part of your work.
Yeah.
Young people are still happy. They still have hope. They haven't been tinged by the cynicism that maybe some of us older folks have. How do you explain something like LEOBOR and the results of it to young people?
That's a hard one, because I think young people have an instinct for fairness, equality, and justice. And, well, first, I think most people are probably not even aware that we have this until something flares up, in which they're wondering, why can't justice move forward? And I don't know if there's any good way to explain it and still try to cultivate faith and goodwill in the system.
Thank you.
Representative Stewart,
Yes.
will there be public hearings and input when these bills come up for discussion?
Well, the LEOBOR bill has already been heard in committee. I guess now
In the
a couple
House.
in the House.
But in the Senate,
Yes.
we'll see.
Yep.
So if you follow us on social media, the minute we know, we will let you know. I will say, in any legislation, it's not just this one. One of the most frustrating parts of our General Assembly is that the representatives don't even know when their bill is going to be heard up until at least maybe 48 hours. And so we have 48 hours to let everybody know that they could spend their night at the State House on a random Thursday when they may have soccer practice or they may be able to take care of their kids, all while people like Officer Lugo are benefiting off of this law being in place. But I also want to say this, because 3 years ago it was very popular to come out here and to support organizations like ours and feel good about yourself. For all of you to be here today, 3 years later, and for you to stand here, and it's pretty chilly, supporting Jennifer Rourke and calling for historic legislation, I'm proud of all of you. And I'm proud to stand here together as a community to get this done together. Because without all of you, we're not going to get it done. We're not.
Can I say something?
Sure.
You're not going to like it, but this has been going on for a long time. LEOBOR has been a problem for a long time. Police protect police. It's always been that way. It's been that way in every city I've lived in. You have all these court things, and it's always been laid on the taxpayers. They've always been the ones who have paid the freight. The middle class and the poor people are getting poor. You say you're gonna do this for the next year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. People are going to get fed up with it. And I'm telling you, in my gut, there'll be a revolution it takes to gut that place. And going through the slow, laborious process of going down and talking in front of the legislature, it's bullshit. Sorry, but you have got to get stronger, and you've got to act like you mean it.
What do you mean act like we mean it? Act like
Look at this group here. This is not much of a group.
What are you doing here?
I'm all in favor of what's going on.
So you
I just think that I think you should get tougher. You have to get tougher.
I mean, things got pretty tough during the George Floyd.
That was out there.
But you can't get tougher.
It was everywhere.
When the guy, I
We
didn't
shut down this street.
Go ahead.
We shut down the State House.
We vote for representatives. We vote for people.
I understand that, but
you're
how
saying
long
is
can
trying
this
to- okay,
stop?
but you're saying you have to get stronger. What we have to do is get wiser. We have to stop electing these people that wear empty suits that do nothing for the people.
I agree.
We have to stand up for that. We have to hold people accountable. You cannot keep marching and protesting and the same nonsense happens over and over again.
Absolutely.
So if there's no change, if our representatives cannot stand up for and represent, that's what they are. They are our representative. So if they are not representing you, and the same thing is happening over and over, you've got to stop voting for these individuals and allowing them to take your power.
I understand that, but this has been going on for how long?
I know,
the
but
same
this is,
people get
we
in.
march up when it happens to black. It does not matter whether you're black. It does not matter whether you're white. Look at what the police officer did to those 2 young boys in the car. That is somebody's son. That is somebody's grandson.
that.
But hold on a second. Don't shut me down for now. That is somebody's grandson. That is somebody. That police officer disfired his weapon in public. He should not have been getting paid before his trial happened. He should not be collecting. You know when a police officer gets paid? They're on our dime. It's taxpayers' money that is paid for them. To abuse the system and take the law into their own hands, nobody is above the law.
That's right. I agree totally with you.
We all agree with that.
Totally with you.
Thank you, everybody, so much. Does anybody else have anything that they want to say?
Forever hold your peace.
Well, I'll see you in 4 years, guys.
All right.
Well, you
Thank you
won't.
so
I
much,
mean,
everybody. for
I'd
coming.
like to.
Sir.
Now,
Thank you.
As a
I'll.
white man, don't you think have a little more humility when you're talking to people who are the victims of this kind of violence? Don't come here as a white
But we
person
don't want-
telling
wait,
Jews
we don't
and
want to be
what
the
they're
victim.
supposed to do.
That's the problem. We don't want to be the victim. We're tired of being the victim. We're tired. My husband's white, but we have to put blinders on and hold people accountable for their action, and not because of the color of their skin.
I don't understand why you guys aren't getting what I'm saying. It's up to you.
I can't believe what happened to that woman. It's civilian clothing. He is not an officer, so how does the officer bill of rights protect him when he is not an officer and he's in civilian clothing?
Folks, we're going to stay with this for a few minutes.
All right.
So what will happen? What's going to happen? I'm curious. What's the next step? I want to know, what is the next step?
So
Because we all
we're waiting
down.
for. We're hoping the Senate is gonna have a committee hearing, and then we're gonna all organize to
And there's a
testify.
bill by Karen Mack through here.
And that bill has sat there for a while.
Well, so what
now-
we're hearing
now
is
we
the
got
problem. What we're hearing is the problem is that other representatives are like, oh, I'm not getting calls from my constituents. So, yeah, we gotta get better organized.
But it's not only calling. You stand at the State House when the bill is being represented. We all gather at the State House and we hold our signs up and we get their attention that way. Because calling gets you nowhere. It's all that running around.
You can always come to the House before session and come on
or anything that the
legislators
If you reach out to one of us, we're usually there.
but it's been a good year for you.
Yes, yeah. Sure. I don't get it.
Okay, I live in Chicago.
Oh, it's gross. So they're on it. Oh, they're actually.
So that's Oak Hill and Rose River.
I mean, they're
So just the area
never
protected now.
You guys are so much better.
Yeah, so if you take like your Fair Lawn, yes. So that may have
There's a gentleman, I spoke with him the last time.
it's all yeah, at least representing the House.
I
To
think
the C100. Right down Arnold.
we wait until something happens, and then we get mad and upset.
Yeah, me too. I don't know who's well. It's a clear field right now.
The way that right. Yeah.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
I think you need a upside. And also like sorry and just somehow like the worst of
You guys can talk about it. Maybe Cynthia will definitely talk about it.
Right. I know. Hoping
I
that.
plan on, I can run it here sometime.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he wasn't in for either. Right?
Bye bye.
How you doing? Nice to see you. The guy who shot the.
We're going to get a couple interviews in a second. Bear with us. Appreciate you tuning in.
Well, how is the?
It's wild.
They get a question no matter what.
Representative Stewart is currently speaking to a constituent. Of course, we want to respect that.
I ran against it. Her constitutional rights were broken. And if I was her, I would hire her. A whole form
The gentleman who got into a little bit of a verbal tussle has left.
there was no imminent danger.
It was interesting because there was I think a little bit of crosstalk. It's my belief that gentleman was actually encouraging outright revolution. And take it, buddy. We're just going to grab Representative Stewart for just a second. Hi, Rep. Stewart. We asked you a couple of our questions already, but if you can give us just a little bit of a sense, and by the way, if you just tuning into the Facebook, I'm here with Representative Jennifer Stewart. She is the freshman senator for Pawtucket. House Rep. My God, I've sat next to you in the chambers. Pawtucket has quite the representation. Representative Felix, Representative Cruz, and I think a lot of folks gave Rep Felix last term Freshman of the Year. You're in the running for that right now, right?
You're too kind.
A lot of moving parts in Pawtucket, but are you optimistic about some level of reform this time around?
I am optimistic. Are you talking about LEOBOR?
LEOBOR, yeah.
In particular? I'm optimistic that something will happen within 2 years.
Okay. Is the fact that 3 bills are running at once, is that proving to be a challenge in terms of a representative body where people are going to vote? Is that splitting the vote in your thoughts?
I don't know if it's splitting the vote. It might lead people to think really more seriously that it's time to do something.
Right. The level of noise, the level of amplification that's being given to the issue. And do you think, final question, this is Providence Police Department going to step up in terms of the administration and the mayor and support the reform as well? Because they can't be happy with the back and forth chaos of the last 5, 10, 15, 20 years.
Well, I'm actually not sure about Smiley. My feeling was that the administration supported some form of reform, but I don't know about repeal.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Well, again, thanks as always for joining us. I want to catch up with you this week. There's a lot going on with Morley. There's a lot going on with the stadium. Yikes. Pawtucket is, in fact, the center of the Rhode Island political universe. That's all I'll say. So thanks for chatting with us.
Thanks, Pat. I appreciate it.